The story of the Harris family is one of betrayal, obsession, and a shocking descent into murder. It is a chilling reminder that appearances are often deceiving, and that the darkness hidden behind closed doors can be far more horrifying than anyone ever imagines. Dr. David Harris, a respected physician in his community, appeared to live a perfect life. With a successful career, a beautiful home, and a family that seemed happy to outsiders, nobody suspected the storm that was brewing beneath the surface. It all began with an affair. Dr. Harris, a man many considered intelligent and composed, became involved in a relationship outside of his marriage. What started as secret glances and hidden messages quickly escalated into a full-blown obsession. The woman involved, whose identity was later revealed to be a close acquaintance of the family, became entangled in a web of lies, manipulation, and coercion. The nature of this affair was not just emotional, it was controlling and toxic, revealing a side of Dr. Harris that few had ever seen. At the same time, tensions in the Harris household began to rise. Dr. Harris had a wife who, despite suspecting something was amiss, trusted her husband deeply. She noticed small changes, a late-night phone call here, a disappearing weekend there, but nothing could have prepared her for the truth. The affair was not just a private matter, it was a secret that would eventually destroy the family. The deception Dr. Harris carried out was calculated and chilling. He believed he could maintain his perfect image while indulging in dangerous desires. As the affair continued, the psychological toll on the family became evident. Children noticed subtle shifts in behavior, in their father's attention, and in the way their mother carried herself. There was unease in the house that could not be explained. Friends and neighbors remarked on the tension, yet no one could predict the catastrophe that was about to unfold. Dr. Harris's obsession grew more intense, and with it came a sense of paranoia and desperation that would ultimately lead to murder. The first signs of danger emerged in the form of financial irregularities and suspicious behavior. Dr. Harris began making unusual transactions, some of which were attempts to cover up his secret life. Bills went unpaid, yet others were mysteriously inflated. This financial secrecy mirrored the emotional secrecy in the household. The duality of Dr. Harris's life created a pressure cooker environment where anxiety and suspicion thrived. Those closest to him were left in the dark, unaware that his actions were spiraling toward a deadly conclusion. The affair itself became increasingly controlling. Dr. Harris began manipulating the woman involved, isolating her from friends and family, ensuring she could not escape his influence. Threats and subtle intimidation became part of the relationship. The woman, once independent and confident, grew fearful and submissive, trapped in a toxic dynamic that would ultimately have devastating consequences. It is at this point that the story shifts from secrecy to a violent inevitability, where the danger is no longer just emotional but life-threatening. One night, the fragile balance of secrecy and deception collapsed. Arguments within the family intensified, fueled by the weight of hidden truths and simmering resentment. Dr. Harris's obsession had reached a tipping point. Evidence suggests that he feared exposure more than anything else, and that fear drove him to consider actions that were unthinkable to those who knew him as a doctor, a father, and a husband. The idea that someone could threaten his carefully constructed image became unbearable, and in his mind, eliminating that threat was the only solution. The murder itself was shocking in its audacity and cruelty. Details from the investigation reveal a meticulously planned act, carried out with a chilling lack of hesitation. It occurred during what should have been an ordinary evening, in the very home where the family lived, under the roof of safety and trust. The victim, a member of the family, was caught completely off guard, a reminder that horror can strike where people feel most secure. Neighbors later described the night as eerily quiet, with no hint of the violence unfolding inside. After the murder, Dr. Harris attempted to maintain the illusion of normalcy. He continued his professional duties, interacted with friends and colleagues, and acted as if nothing had changed. But beneath the surface, his mind was unraveling. Investigators later discovered a trail of inconsistencies, lies, and manipulations that exposed the stark contrast between his public persona and private actions. The depth of his deception was astonishing, and it became clear that the murder was not a crime of passion, but a calculated act rooted in obsession and fear. The investigation itself was a turning point. Police initially treated the case as a domestic dispute, but as evidence mounted, the true complexity of the situation emerged. Forensic analysis, digital records, and witness testimonies painted a picture of a man who had meticulously orchestrated the murder. The case became a high-profile example of how hidden desires and obsessive behavior can culminate in extreme violence. Every piece of evidence seemed to reveal a new layer of Dr. Harris's psychological state, making the story even more disturbing. In court, the details of the affair and murder shocked everyone. The prosecution laid out a narrative of manipulation, obsession, and premeditation. Dr. Harris's defense argued for a momentary lapse in judgment, claiming emotional instability, but the evidence told a different story. The meticulous planning, the steps taken to conceal his actions, and the psychological control exerted over both the victim and the woman involved all pointed to a deliberate and calculated crime. The courtroom became a stage for a tragedy that combined betrayal, passion, and deadly intent. Public reaction to the case was intense. Friends, colleagues, and neighbors struggled to reconcile the image of a respected doctor with that of a murderer. Media coverage highlighted the shocking duality of Dr. Harris, raising questions about morality, secrecy, and the dangers of obsession. The story resonated with people because it revealed how ordinary lives can hide extraordinary darkness. It also served as a cautionary tale about trust deception and the potential consequences of hidden desires. As the trial continued, more revelations came to light. Letters, messages, and recordings showed the extent of the affair and the psychological manipulation involved. The woman in the affair eventually testified, revealing the coercion and fear she experienced. Her testimony painted a disturbing picture of control and influence, demonstrating how Dr. Harris used both charm and intimidation to maintain power over her. These details made the murder seem inevitable, as if it was the only possible outcome of a toxic situation allowed to fester. The aftermath of the trial was intense. Dr. Harris was convicted of murder, and the sentence reflected the severity of his actions. Yet even after the legal resolution, questions remained. How could a respected doctor descend into such darkness? How could the signs be missed? And what lessons could be learned to prevent similar tragedies? Experts and psychologists discussed these questions at length, analyzing the warning signs, the role of obsession, and the consequences of unchecked desires. Even years later, the story of the Harris family continues to fascinate and horrify. True crime enthusiasts, psychologists, and journalists examine the case to understand the motives and psychology behind it. Documentaries and books explore the affair, the murder, and the legal proceedings, keeping the story alive in public consciousness. The Harris case has become a reference point for discussions about domestic violence, obsession, and the consequences of hidden transgressions. In the end, the story of the Harris family is not just about a murder. It is about the fragility of trust, the consequences of obsession, and the destructive power of secrecy. It is about a man who allowed his desires to override morality, destroying the lives of those he was meant to protect. And it is about a family and community left to pick up the pieces in the aftermath of unimaginable horror. As we reflect on this case, it is impossible not to wonder how many other families live with hidden dangers, masked by appearances. The Harris family story serves as a stark reminder that evil can exist behind the most ordinary facades, that obsession can escalate into violence, and that secrets, when left unchecked, can have deadly consequences. This is a tale that continues to haunt those who study it, reminding us all to be vigilant, to trust our instincts, and to recognize the darkness that can lurk where we least expect it. Even now, the echoes of this tragedy remain. Families, friends, and communities affected by similar cases often struggle to reconcile the ordinary with the horrifying. The Harris family story is a chilling reminder that the darkness within individuals can erupt in ways no one ever anticipates. It is a case that will continue to be studied, remembered, and feared for years to come. And perhaps the most haunting question of all is this: how close is someone to disaster before we even notice? How many affairs, lies, and obsessions are silently building the next horror story behind closed doors? The Harris family case leaves us with a stark truth. Evil is not always loud, it is not always obvious, but when it emerges, the consequences are irreversible.